The galactic fear. The council chamber was filled with shadows. Hundreds of alien delegates sat in silence, their eyes fixed on the center of the hall. Some had scales. Some had fur. Others glowed faintly in the dim light. All of them were powerful in their own ways, rulers of ancient empires and guardians of star systems. Yet tonight, they gathered to speak of only one species, humans. The word itself carried a strange energy. Some whispered it with fear, others with anger, and some with secret admiration. But none could ignore it. The oldest alien among them, a creature of stone skin and molten eyes, raised his heavy voice. Brothers and sisters of the galaxy, we meet to discuss the greatest threat to our order, he said. The humans. Murmurs spread through the chamber like cold wind. One insectoid delegate clicked her mandibles in disgust. They are weak. Their lifespans are short. Their bodies are fragile, she hissed. But they are dangerous because they do not obey the limits of nature. Another alien, tall and thin with a long silver neck, leaned forward. They fight wars they should never win. They travel into places they should never survive, he said. But it is not only war that makes them dangerous. The chamber grew still, waiting for the words he would speak next. They mate, the silver-necked alien whispered. They bond, they love, with anyone, with anything, with species that should never be compatible. Shock rippled across the chamber. Though it was not true surprise, all of them knew the stories. The stories were spreading faster than any fleet could travel. On one world, a human soldier had fallen in love with a reptilian warrior queen. Their union had stopped a war that lasted centuries. On another world, a human scientist had bonded with an aquatic alien. Together, they created medicines no species had ever imagined. And on yet another planet, a human miner had chosen a mate from a machine race. The machines who once hated organics now considered alliance with flesh and blood. The council leader slammed his clawed hand on the table. Do you not see? He growled. This is not weakness. This is invasion. They do not conquer with fleets. They conquer with hearts. They will not stop. They cannot stop. Some laughed bitterly, but their laughter was nervous. A feathered alien flapped his wings uneasily. They break all rules. They cross all borders, he said. Our laws forbid such unions, but humans ignore laws like they ignore death. A young delegate, her skin glowing with blue light, leaned closer to her neighbor. They are reckless, yes, but why do they succeed? She asked quietly. Her neighbor, a scaled warrior, gave a grim reply. Because they believe in connection, and once they believe, they do not let go. The chamber filled with overlapping voices, fear, anger, denial, admiration, all tangled together. One alien shouted that humans must be controlled. Another shouted that it was already too late. A third warned that humans would soon rise above them all. At last, the leader raised his hand, and silence fell. They will reach us, he said in a heavy voice. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but they will reach every one of us. They will come into our homes, into our bloodlines, into our empires. And when they do, no army, no law, no barrier will stop them. For a moment, no one moved. The silence was heavier than stone. Every alien in that chamber imagined the same vision. A galaxy slowly, silently, becoming bound to humans, not by force, not by war, but by something deeper, something unstoppable. And in that silence, in that fear, a human name was spoken. A single human who was already changing the destiny of an alien world. The council froze, listening to the echo of that name, because they all knew The future had already begun, and humans were at the center of it, the human outsider. The alien station floated like a giant crown above a gas giant. Its towers shined with blue light, its walls made of living crystal that hummed with energy. Every corner was filled with strange life. Insectoid guards, feathered merchants, glowing aquatic diplomats moving inside water-filled suits. It was a place where hundreds of species met, traded and negotiated. But among them walked one being who did not belong, a human. His name was Daniel. Though most aliens never bothered to ask, they only called him the outsider. His steps echoed too loudly in the crystal halls. His breathing sounded too rough in the clean, filtered air, where other species moved gracefully with long limbs or flowing wings. He was plain, short, and heavy. His skin carried scars from old battles, and his eyes carried the weight of old memories. The aliens looked at him with suspicion, some with fear, some with quiet disgust. Yet none dared to confront him directly. Daniel noticed their stares, but did not respond. He had grown used to it. Everywhere he went, it was the same. Whispers behind his back, merchants refusing service, guards watching every step. Humans were not welcome here, but he had been sent anyway. The Council on Earth wanted him to learn, to see, maybe even to build a bridge with these distant species. But Daniel felt the truth. This was no mission of peace. This was exile. He sat in a corner of the alien marketplace, the smells of burning herbs and metal oils filling the air. Aliens passed by, speaking in dozens of languages, their voices mixing like a storm. Daniel kept quiet, his eyes scanning, his mind searching for something familiar. But nothing felt familiar here. Not the food, not the lights, not even the stars outside the station windows. It was a lonely place for a human, yet he did not break. Inside him was the same stubborn fire that every human carried, the kind of fire that had carried his people across oceans, across planets, and now across the stars. He would not bend, not here, not to anyone. Then it happened. As Daniel walked down a narrow passage lined with glowing crystal walls, he heard a voice, not just any voice. It was soft, musical, almost like a song. He stopped, his heart beating faster. From the shadows stepped a figure, tall, graceful, with skin that shimmered like polished silver under the lights. Her eyes glowed faintly, her hair floated as if moved by invisible water. She was not human, not even close. But she was beautiful in a way that was impossible to deny. The aliens who saw her quickly stepped back, their faces pale. No one wanted to be near her. No one dared. She belonged to a species known for cold hearts, for silence, for never choosing outsiders. They were feared for their pride, respected for their ancient power. And yet here she was, standing before a human. Her gaze locked on Daniel. He felt the air tighten, as if the station itself was holding its breath. "Human," she said softly, her voice like water running over stone. Daniel said nothing at first, unsure if it was a trap, unsure if speaking would draw danger, but then he nodded, slowly. "Yes," he answered, his voice steady. She studied him with curious eyes, not filled with hate, not filled with disgust, but something else, something Daniel could not name. The aliens watching from the shadows whispered furiously, "This cannot be." One hissed, "She speaks to him." Another gasped, "She should not," said a third, their voice trembling. Daniel ignored them, his focus only on her. She took one step closer, the crystals glowing brighter, as if responding to her presence. "You are different," she whispered. Her words were simple, but in them was a weight that made Daniel's chest tighten. different. The word humans always heard, but this time it sounded less like an insult and more like a secret. He wanted to ask her name, but before he could, guards appeared at the end of the corridor. They shouted warnings, ordering her to step back, ordering Daniel to be removed, but she did not move. Her glowing eyes stayed locked on Daniel, and in that moment, he felt something shift, something dangerous, something powerful, something alive. The guards hesitated, unsure if they should force her away. The aliens in the shadows whispered louder, and Daniel, standing in the center of it all, realized the truth. Whatever this was, it was forbidden, but it had already begun. The forbidden bond. The station grew restless after that meeting. Whispers spread across every hall, across every marketplace, across every private chamber. The story was simple but shocking. A human had spoken with her, and she had spoken back. That alone was enough to shake the balance of the station. Her name was Cirrus, daughter of an ancient bloodline. Her people were known as the Vayari, a race of silver-skinned beings who ruled with silence and strict order. The Vayari were feared for their cold hearts, for their refusal to share feelings with outsiders. No one had ever seen a Vayari show warmth, not to their own kind, and certainly not to a human. Yet Cirrus had looked at Daniel with something different, something alive, something curious, something dangerous. Daniel felt it too, though he did not want to admit it. He had been alone for so long, mistrusted, pushed aside, and treated as an intruder, but in her presence, he did not feel like an outsider. When she spoke the word different, it echoed inside him like a secret song. He could not explain it, but he knew it was real. Days passed, and somehow she found him again, always in places where no one else dared to go. Hidden corners of the station, quiet crystal halls, or empty gardens where light filters hummed softly. Every time, her eyes followed him with the same strange intensity. She never said much, only a few words, only questions. "Why do you walk without fear?" she asked once. "Why do you not bow when others demand it?" she asked another time. And Daniel always answered with the same calm voice. "Because I am human." The words seemed to puzzle her, yet also fascinate her. She pressed closer, curious about the scars on his skin, the roughness of his hands, the way his eyes never looked away. And Daniel, though cautious, felt himself drawn to her. Her presence carried danger, but also a warmth he had never felt from any alien. It was as if a wall that had always stood between species was beginning to crack. But not everyone was blind to this bond. The station's Council of Governors noticed. Guards whispered. Merchants complained. Ambassadors sent secret reports. "This must be stopped," one governor declared. A Vayari bonding with a human is not only forbidden, it is a threat to our order. If they connect, if they choose each other, it will send a message to every world in this sector. Humans cannot be allowed to spread like this. Still, Cirrus did not care. She continued to find Daniel. Even when guards tried to keep her away, she continued to speak to him, even when her people warned her of exile. And slowly, Daniel began to realize what this meant. This was no simple curiosity, no simple interest. This was something deeper, something alive, something forbidden. One evening, inside the garden of glass flowers, Cirrus finally spoke the truth. Her silver skin glowed faintly in the dim light, and her voice was soft, but steady. "They call you dangerous," she said. "They say you will break our order, destroy our walls, corrupt our bloodlines." Daniel looked at her carefully, unsure if these were her words or the words of her people. But then she stepped closer, close enough that the glow of her skin reflected in his eyes. "They are afraid," she whispered. "They are afraid of you, and perhaps I am afraid too. But I cannot stop." The moment was heavy. Daniel felt the air grow still, his heart beating fast in his chest. For the first time, he understood the truth. The fear of humans was not only about war, not only about survival, it was about this, the bond, the choice, the crossing of lines no other species dared to cross. And here, on this station, that bond was already forming. From the shadows on eyes watched, alien merchants hiding behind crystal walls, guards hiding in corridors, council spies listening in silence. They all saw it, they all heard it. The impossible was happening before their eyes. A human and a Vayari, standing close, speaking softly, breaking every rule of the galaxy. When Daniel finally spoke, his voice was low but firm. "I did not ask for this," he said. "I did not come here to break rules, but I will not run from it either. If they fear us, let them fear. But I will not pretend this is not real." Cirrus looked at him for a long time, her glowing eyes softening. Then she placed her hand gently against his arm. It was the first touch, the first bridge across the impossible wall, and in that moment, both of them knew, whatever came next, there would be no turning back. The whispers grew louder across the station that night. Some called it betrayal, others called it madness, but many whispered a different word, hope. And with that hope came fear, because if a Vayari could choose a human, then nothing was impossible, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The rising threat. The council of the station could no longer remain silent. Whispers had turned into open arguments. Reports of Cirrus and Daniel meeting in secret had reached every corner of the galaxy. Some species demanded action, others demanded exile, and some, in quiet voices, admitted curiosity. But curiosity was a dangerous seed, and the rulers feared what it might grow into. In the Grand Chamber, the governors gathered. Their faces were cold, their voices sharp. "This is no longer a rumor," one said, his scaled fists hitting the table. "She walks with him openly. She defies her own kind, and he accepts it. This is corruption, and it cannot be allowed to spread." Another governor, with eyes like burning coals, leaned forward. "Do you not understand," he growled, "that this is how humans conquer? Not with fleets, not with fire, but with bonds. If one human can take the hand of a Vayari, then tomorrow another human will take the hand of a warrior queen, and the next day an empress. They will unite us against our will, until the galaxy itself belongs to them." The words struck fear into the chamber. They all knew it was true. Humans did not stop. They did not bend to rules. They did not fear boundaries. And their greatest weapon was not their ships or their guns. It was their ability to connect, to care, to claim what no other species dared to claim. So the council made their decision. Daniel was to be removed, quietly if possible, by force if necessary. Cirrus was to be isolated, returned to her people, cut off from the human before the bond grew stronger. The order was signed, and the guards were prepared. But Cirrus already knew. Her people had warned her. Her family had begged her. "Break this now," they told her. "If you continue, you will lose your name, your power, your place among us." Yet Cirrus refused. Her voice was steady when she answered, "I will not walk away." Daniel sensed the danger too. He saw the way the guards followed him through the corridors. He heard the silence that grew thicker each time he entered the marketplace. He knew something was coming, but he did not run. Running was not in his nature. And perhaps, deep inside, he wanted to prove them right. He wanted to prove that humans could not be stopped. One night the attack came. Daniel had been walking the outer ring of the station. The glass windows, showing the endless storm of the gas giant below. The air shimmered with quiet energy. And then, without warning, the lights cut out, shadows moved, heavy footsteps echoed. Guards surrounded him, their weapons glowing with blue fire. "Human!" one barked. "You are not welcome here." Daniel raised his hands slowly, his eyes cold but calm. "I did not come here to fight," he said. But the guards did not care. Their orders were clear. Remove him, break him, send a message. Before they could strike, another voice rang out. Clear, sharp, filled with power. Enough. It was Sirius, her silver skin glowing brighter than ever, her presence flooding the corridor with light. The guards froze, uncertain. No one disobeyed a Vayari of her bloodline, but she had already chosen her side. She stepped between Daniel and the soldiers, her eyes burning with defiance. "If you touch him, you touch me," she said. Her words echoed like thunder through the crystal walls. The guards hesitated, their claws twitching, their eyes shifting nervously. The moment was heavy with tension. The council's order clashed with the will of one who should not be disobeyed. Daniel stood behind her, his chest tight with emotion. He had not asked for her protection, yet she gave it freely, and in that instant, he understood the truth. This bond was not only forbidden, it was revolutionary. It was the spark of something greater, something unstoppable. The guards retreated, but the damage was done. The council could not ignore what had happened. Now every alien in the station knew. The Vayari woman had stood for the human, and the human had not been broken. Across the galaxy, whispers grew louder. Some called it betrayal, others called it madness. But many began to wonder, if humans could bond with the coldest hearts, then what else could they do? What else could they change? What else could they claim? And in the silence of his quarters that night, Daniel stared out at the stars. He knew war was coming, not only of weapons, but of hearts. The rising threat was no longer a rumor. It was real, and it was growing, and he was standing at the center of it. The revelation. The council's patience had ended. They had seen Ceres defy their orders. They had seen her shield the human with her own voice. Now they believed the danger was not only real, but spreading like fire. Across the stars, news of the bond reached other systems. Alien rulers whispered in secret chambers, debating what this meant for them. If one human could bend the will of a Vayari, what chance did anyone else have on the station? Daniel felt the weight of every eye. Merchants turned away as he passed. Guards stiffened whenever he entered a hall. Even those who once ignored him now treated him as if he carried a weapon no one could see. But it was not his strength they feared. It was the bond, the choice of Ceres, and the possibility of what it could mean. One evening, Daniel and Ceres met again in the hidden garden. The glass flowers glowed softly under the artificial moonlight. She stood close, her silver skin shimmering with faint patterns of light. Her voice trembled when she spoke, but her words carried truth. "They will not forgive this," she said. "They will not forgive me, and they will never forgive you." Daniel's jaw tightened, his hands curling into fists. "I never asked for this war," he said quietly. "But if it comes, then it comes." Ceres stepped closer, her eyes glowing with strange warmth. "You do not understand, Daniel," she whispered. "This is not only about us. This is about the future of the galaxy." Her words lingered, heavy like stone. Daniel did not fully grasp it yet, but soon he would. For that night, the station shook with alarms. A fleet had arrived. Not traders, not diplomats, but soldiers. An alien race known for their cruelty had come without warning. Ships shaped like blades surrounded the station. Their weapons glowing red, panic spread through the halls. Merchants fled. Guards scrambled. Governors shouted orders. The crystal walls echoed with fear. The invaders demanded surrender. They wanted the station, its power, its resources, its secrets, and they promised destruction if denied. The governors gathered quickly, their voices frantic. "Our fleets are far away," one cried. "We cannot fight them," said another. "Then we must give them what they want," whispered a third. But deep down, they all knew what the invaders wanted most. Not crystals, not trade, but the human. The stories of Daniel had already reached their ears. They wanted to break him, to prove to the galaxy that humans were not special, that humans could be crushed like any other species. The governors sent soldiers to seize him, but they were too late, for Ceres had already moved. She found Daniel in the chaos, her eyes sharp, her voice filled with urgency. "They are coming for you," she said. "You must hide." Daniel shook his head, his voice calm even as the alarm screamed. "I will not run," he said. "This is not only about me anymore." "Is it?" Cirrus's silence was answer enough, and then the truth fell from her lips like a blade. "They fear you because they know the truth," she said. "You are the revelation." Her words struck him harder than any weapon. He had always felt like an outsider, always treated like less. But now, in the eyes of the galaxy, he was something more, not because of power, not because of armies, but because of what humans could do. They could cross the lines no one else could. They could connect where others could not. They could bond. And in that bond, they could change everything. The invaders attacked. The station shook. Explosions rattled the crystal towers. The air filled with smoke and screams. Daniel and Cirrus ran through the chaos. Soldiers chasing, walls cracking, and yet, even in that storm, he felt clarity. The revelation was simple. The galaxy feared humans, not because of destruction, but because of creation. Not because they ended things, but because they began them. In the burning halls, Daniel faced a squad of soldiers. Their weapons ready. He had no gun, no armor, only his fists and his will. Yet when he stood his ground, something unexpected happened. Cirrus stepped beside him, her silver skin glowing brighter, her voice sharp as steel. "If he falls, I fall," she declared. The soldiers hesitated, uncertain. For the first time, they saw what the council had feared. A human and a Vayari standing together, choosing each other, not by force, not by law, but by will, and it made them afraid. The battle raged around them, but that moment was the true turning point. The revelation had come to life. It was no longer a rumor, no longer whispers in a chamber. It was a living truth, seen by every eye on the station. And as the flames spread, as the warships circled, one thought burned in every mind. If humans could do this, then nothing could stop them. Not fleets, not empires, not fear itself. The turning point. The station burned. Explosions tore through the crystal towers. Fire and smoke filled the air. Alarms screamed, while frightened civilians fled through the glowing corridors. The invaders pressed forward, their ships firing red beams that cracked the shields. The governors shouted orders, but their voices carried no strength. Their walls were falling, and their fear was louder than their commands. Daniel and Cirrus ran through the chaos, their steps echoing across broken halls. Behind them, soldiers chased. In front of them, flames and collapsing walls blocked the way. Yet they did not stop. Everywhere they turned, the truth followed them. Eyes watching, whispers spreading. The human and the Vayari together, refusing to bend, refusing to break. The impossible bond had become the center of the storm. Finally, they reached the central chamber, the heart of the station. Here the governors gathered, trembling as the walls shook, their eyes locked on Daniel with fury and fear. "This is your fault," one spat. "They came for you, human, and now we will all die." But Sarah stepped forward, her silver skin glowing like a blade of light. "No," she said firmly. "They came because they fear what he represents. They came because the truth has already spread." The chamber fell silent, broken only by the rumble of distant explosions. Daniel looked at the governors, then at the frightened people gathered near the doors. Merchants, workers, travelers, soldiers, all of them trapped in the same storm. He knew they were waiting, not for orders, not for laws, but for something else, for someone to stand. So Daniel took a breath, and his voice carried across the chamber. "You think I am your enemy," he said. "You think humans are here to conquer, to take, to destroy. But the truth is simple. We do not conquer with fleets. We do not break with fire. We change with bonds, with connection, with choice." His words echoed through the chamber like thunder. The governors sneered, but the people listened. Even the soldiers hesitated, their weapons lowering slightly. And in that moment, Cirrus moved beside him, her voice clear and steady. "He is not alone," she said. "He is human, and I am Vayari, and yet I choose him." Her declaration cut through the fear like a blade. The people gasped, the governors shouted, but it was too late. The turning point had already come. Outside, the invaders pushed harder, their ships breaking through the outer shields. The station was seconds away from collapse. The governors panicked, screaming for surrender. But Daniel's voice rose again, louder, stronger, filled with fire. "Listen to me," he said. "You can bow and surrender, or you can stand and fight. You may fear me, but fear will not save you. Only courage will." The words struck like lightning. For the first time, the people of the station saw something they had never seen before. A human standing without armor, without rank, without crown, yet commanding through sheer will, and they believed. It was not logic, not law, not fear. It was belief, and it spread like fire through dry fields. The soldiers who once pointed their weapons at Daniel now turned toward the invaders. Merchants grabbed tools. Guards raised shields. Even children carried supplies. The station began to fight back, not because the governors ordered it, but because Daniel had lit the spark. The invaders stormed into the central chamber, their weapons blazing. But instead of a broken, fearful crowd, they found resistance. The people of the station stood together, united for the first time. And at the center of them all stood Daniel and Cirrus, side by side, human and Vayari, a symbol no enemy could ignore. The battle raged fiercely. Daniel fought with his fists, with his strength, with his unbreakable spirit. Cirrus fought with light, her glowing skin blazing brighter than the fires around them. Together, they drove the invaders back step by step. Every alien who saw them realized the truth. This was the turning point, not because of weapons, not because of numbers, but because of the bond. At last, the invaders faltered. Their leader, a towering beast with burning eyes, glared at Daniel with hatred. "You cannot win," he growled. "You are only human." But Daniel stood tall, blood on his face, fire in his eyes. "That is enough," he answered. And with those words, the people charged. The invaders broke under the weight of unity, retreating to their ships, fleeing into the stars. When the battle ended, the station stood in ruins but alive. The people gathered around Daniel and Cirrus, their eyes filled not with fear but with awe. The governors tried to speak, but their voices no longer carried power. The people had already chosen who to follow, and the galaxy, watching through countless eyes, knew it too. The turning point had come. Humans could not be ignored. They could not be stopped. And now, the future of the galaxy had shifted forever. The station floated in silence after the battle. The fires were dying, the smoke drifting away through broken vents. The crystal towers stood cracked and scarred, but they were still standing, everywhere across the station. The people worked together, repairing, rebuilding, carrying the wounded. For the first time, the station was not divided by species, not divided by fear. It was united, and at the center of that unity stood Daniel and Cirrus. Daniel stood on the balcony of the grand chamber, his body bruised, his clothes torn, his face marked by battle. Below him, hundreds of eyes watched, aliens of every kind. Their voices were hushed, their hearts waiting. Cirrus stood at his side, her silver skin glowing softly, her presence calm and powerful. Together, they looked like something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. The governors sat in silence behind them, their power broken, their words meaningless. They had tried to control the storm, but the storm had swept them aside. Now the people no longer looked to them for guidance. They looked to the human, and to the Vayari who had chosen him. Daniel raised his voice, steady but filled with fire. "You fought today, not because of orders, not because of fear," he said. "You fought because you believed. You believed in survival. You believed in each other, and for that, you won. The crowd stirred, their eyes shining with something deeper than relief. They were inspired. They were alive. Cirrus spoke next, her voice like soft thunder rolling through the chamber. For generations we built walls between us, she said. We told ourselves that some bonds were forbidden, that some choices were impossible. But today, those walls fell. Her glowing eyes swept across the crowd. And you saw what they tried to hide. You saw that nothing is impossible. Not even this. Her hand brushed against Daniel's arm, the gesture simple but powerful. The crowd gasped, some in shock, some in awe, and then whispers began to spread. If a Vayari could choose a human, then any wall could fall. If a human could stand at the heart of a battle and unite strangers, then any enemy could be faced. The thought spread like fire across every heart. But not everyone was pleased. In the shadows, messengers carried secret words across the galaxy. Rulers in distant systems watched with unease. To them, this was not hope. This was danger. Because if humans could create bonds where none should exist, then their power would grow without limits. Armies could be defeated. Laws could be ignored. Walls could be broken. And no empire could resist forever. Daniel sensed it too, as he stood on that balcony. He knew this was not the end. The invaders had fled, but they would return, and when they did, they would not come alone. The galaxy would not sit still, while humans rewrote its rules. But Daniel was not afraid. He had seen what fear could do, and he had seen what courage could do, and he knew which side he would always stand on. That night, in the quiet of the ruined gardens, Daniel and Cirrus walked together. The stars outside burned brighter than ever. You know what this means, Cirrus whispered, her voice softer than the glow of the flowers. Daniel nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on the endless sky. They will come for us, he said. They will try to stop us. Cirrus looked at him, her expression calm but unshakable. Then let them try, she whispered. They will learn what I have learned, that humans cannot be stopped. The words hung in the air like a vow, a promise carried into the stars. And somewhere beyond the horizon, far from the ruined station, fleets were gathering, councils were meeting, rulers were plotting. The galaxy was preparing for war, not just of weapons, but of hearts, because the revelation of humanity had already begun, and no power, no empire, no law could turn it back. The human and the Vayari stood together, hand in hand, not conquerors, not rulers, but symbols of a new age. An age where bonds mattered more than walls. An age where choices mattered more than blood. An age where the galaxy would never again be the same. And as the stars burned, the whispers spread further, across fleets, across worlds, across empires. The words echoed like thunder in the void. Humans will mate any alien they want, and nothing can stop it.